Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bridging the Gap.
It's unreal to witness here, Chris. This police line, we just saw an officer extracted. An officer was down. We don't know exactly how they were injured. Another officer here that was standing on these steps took some glass in the arm. These demonstrators are ready to confront these law enforcement officers. You have law enforcement in heavy tactical gear, protesters that are, clearly ready. You just see something else happen there. Another demonstrator threw what appeared to be a large object.
The near future of architecture must contain radical architecture. Radical, of or having roots, meaning going to the origin. For architecture to become radical, it must explore its past, present, and future role in sustaining its origins of oppression and systemic racism. It must practice an art of refusal against the long history of complicitness in architecture and urban design. What does it mean for a space to be democratic? Radical architecture must bridge the gap from past racial transgressions and move forward to a more inclusive and equitable environment to allow freedom and access to all people. At the beginning of the semester, we were all tasked with analyzing a certain piece of art. I was lucky enough to study Retopistics, a renegade excavation by Julie Moretu. The original analysis can be seen here, where I started by bringing out prominent lines and planar elements to discover the structure of the piece. Moving forward, I took the information that I learned from the original piece and used that knowledge to create works of my own. Like Moretu, using prominent architectural imagery as the backdrop for her work, I chose to use strong and stable American imagery as the background for my piece, those being the structure of the Statue of Liberty, the Capitol Dome, and the crosswalk. The crosswalk has strong symbolism with the topics being discussed today. It is used as a vessel for passage from one space to another. It brings people together and is a safe haven for travel through a dangerous environment. Based on the original iterations, these are the final works created, including drawings and a creation used to explore spatial depths and intricacies based on principles found in the drawings. Creating these images from the original model were inspirations that show up in several places in the final proposal. During the initial site analysis phase, I discovered the rich history of this site and decided to focus in on the idea of the protest. In both of these maps, the idea of the protest was the main driver behind these images. The map on the left shows how I wanted to bring people into my site from the 10th Street entrance by symbolically showing the crosswalk and using that as a passage onto my site. If you look at the bars in the crosswalk, you can see images of protest that have happened throughout Atlanta's history. I thought it was important to have an image that showed the reason for the protests. Radiating from our site is the names of Black Americans that have died at the hands of the police. The goal of my project is to bridge the gap of this tragic history and move forward to a more hopeful future. Looking at our site from the scale of the city, you can see the densely urban conditions that surround the area of Midtown Atlanta. Bordered by 10th Street to the south, I have chosen to accent the old site of the original Negro building and orient my building around this site, bringing a once castaway part of the exposition to the front and center. Zooming in a little bit, I have oriented my proposal parallel to 10th Street and keeping the same entrance from Charles Allen Drive and 10th Street that exists today. This is the main access point from outside the park. On the first floor, we have the main theater space in the building on plan left, the old Negro building site, which has been converted into a reflection pond and sculpture garden for all to access, and the Climate Hall and Justice Center on the right, housing a large gathering space that can open up to the exterior to allow for free access between interior and exterior. The second floor, we have the balcony seating area for the theater, and in the portion of the building that wraps around the theater, we have the main gallery space to house exhibitions. In the Climate Hall and Justice Center buildings, we have the upper portion of the Climate Hall that can be accessed from the lower level using the stadium seating and stairs. Also, this is where the main connection to the bridge occurs, attaching at 2 points on each the theater building and the Climate Hall and Justice Center. The third level is where the upper portion of the Climate Hall can be found, along with the rooftop access area above the Justice Hall. The circulation was designed to be accessible from any approach angle, attempting to create a space that is truly democratic. In section, the quality of each of the spaces can be much better understood. The glazing surrounding the gallery spaces is to be a fin system that is composed of clear glazing, translucent glazing, and extension fins that will house a lenticular printing system so that when the building is viewed from one angle, you get one set of images. And when viewed from another angle, you get a completely new set of images. I have designed it so that the main facade separating the interior from the exterior is composed of two 1-inch layers of glazing with a 6-inch air gap to aid in the heat gain and loss, aiding in the environmental sustainability of this building. Then the clear glazing portion is rotated at a 30-degree angle to maximize the sunlight protection on the south facade, and then the translucent glazing will house a set of images as it rotates back to connect to the next fin. I believe that this is the near future of architecture, a type of space that becomes radical, an architecture that rewrites the narrative going forward, an architecture that refuses to be upheld by the white power system it has dwelled in for centuries, an architecture that bridges the gap from past racial transgressions and moves forward to be a more inclusive and equitable environment to allow freedom and access to all people. I close with a quote from Julie Moretu that has inspired me throughout this entire project. That's what I'm interested in, the space in between, the moment of imagining what is possible and yet not knowing what that is.